The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey, what's up? This is JP, and we're on SFTB INC. This is Real Raw Talk. We got my man Malik. Say what's up to the crowd, Malik.
Bonjour, comment ça va? Oui, oui.
All right, for sure. And we got Nhiyall. Say what's up, Nhiyall.
How's it going? This is the Prince of Padusan saying Kwansu, dudes.
And we got Kevin.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Kevin. You don't know me, but you will soon learn about me. Yes. Awkward introduction.
Exactly. You don't know Kevin, but that doesn't matter because we still gonna have the best content ever.
Yes.
We're gonna talk about transhumanism.
Transgenderism.
Oh,
have you ever heard that term?
We're not touching that subject. We are not touching that subject.
What do you think this is? Tumblr?
I know, for real. This is
sounds like an ideology though. Transgenderism when it's phrased like that.
I thought we were talking about we were talking about transhumanism, the movie, and then you ever see Inception? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Shit, that movie gave me some crazy ass dreams.
I know, right? It kind of has a hidden meaning behind it, like, you know, because we're in a trance-like state when watching movies, and we're also in a trance-like state when we're trying to recall it to others. So I like the kind of double entendre of Inception in a way, because it showed how, like, it was kind of like a parody film of like sci-fi and kind of like fictional movies to me.
One of those quasi-solipsistic films in the same line of like The 13th Floor and The Matrix and Total Recall and Vanilla Sky, The Nines, Truman Show, all that kind of shit. Patriarchy!
Yes.
No!
Anytime someone says one of those feminist buzzwords, all I can see is the image of that chick, Big Red, going around on YouTube, the redheaded bitch yelling patriarchy every time. Patriarchy!
Every time I see Big Red, I think of like the gum. Remember, like the gum commercials? That big red bitchness gets right to it.
Oh yeah, damn! I forgot all about Big Red. Haven't chewed that in a couple
Old
decades.
Commercial.
Yeah, I just don't even involve myself with you know, certain patriarchy, you know, feminist forms, because I feel like, you know, women got to talk about their problems like everybody else, you know, and I think kind of society, considering society shames them for talking the way they do, that just makes them talk about what they do even more. So I figure, hey, just let it all out and we'll, you know. But there are some women that are just like, I don't know. But that's a touchy topic. I don't back, you know, I'd rather discuss existentialist questions. That's me. You know, it's like that movie, you ever see that movie Jumper? It was almost like on the lines of how you could jump back in through time and like discover.
I want that ability.
Yeah, like that seemed like pretty a cool thing to have. Like you could just jump back and forth through time, and like one time he was at a
butterfly
mountain.
effect, wasn't it? Jumper was where they could just teleport through space. Like,
yeah.
Geographically, I think you're thinking more of the butterfly effect of jumping back and forth through time. Right?
Kristen Haydenson was in that one, the one who played Anakin in like the episode 2 and 3 Star Wars. And I just like now. Then that goes into personal identity too, because if your molecules are constantly disassembling and reassembling, then, you know, is that really you? That every time you teleport, you become a different person.
I've heard that same argument about the teleporter on Star Trek? Like, is that really you, or is it just like ripping you apart and composing a whole new you each time it does that?
I'd be afraid of like accidentally teleporting to space. Like if it worked, anything like the instant transmission where
Technically, that actually is a big loophole in a lot of these like time travel films, like say Back to the Future, whatever. Is especially in Back to the Future, because theirs involves not only transportation through time but also through space. Is that the entire universe is moving? The Earth is not a stationary mechanism, and its orbit is not stationary, so it's not like it's going to loop back around to the same spot in space in general. That when it comes back around onto a certain date of the year. So when they say like we want to go back to 1855 to rob a train or whatever it was they did in the third one, and it's based on where that car is driving. Like he says, you got to think fourth dimensionally, Marty. This train track isn't, and the bridge isn't here right now, but in 1985 it will be, and we can just drive across that. Actually, if he had done that, he would have ended up in empty space, because the Earth in its entire orbit, along with the entire solar system and Milky Way galaxy, has moved further from that point where it was the 100 years earlier. So
that makes sense.
Just saying.
That's kind of like that movie Lucy. You ever see that movie Lucy?
Yeah.
Yeah, where the boyfriend just tricks Lucy into like delivering a briefcase, and it was supposed to be some kind of like business contract, and turns out it was like this chemical that, you know, and she some like Japanese mobster dude, you know, like got all gangster on her, and she, next thing you know, she wakes up and she's got this chemical in her that, like, you know, like her brain, it was something that had to do with her brain and like how she gained intelligence. Am I correct on that? Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, and it's based on an urban myth, actually, because we don't use 10% of our brains, we use 100% of our brains. And that's what bothered me the most about.
You only use up to 10% at any given point in your brain at one time. It's kind of like with your muscles. You can use any muscle on your body, but you can only use a certain portion of it at one given time. Like when you're doing curls, you're only using your biceps and your arms, but you can still use your legs and every other muscle in your body. But at that point that you're doing curls, you're only using your biceps. And that's kind of what they're talking about with your brain when you only use 10%. It's 10% at any given time, but you have access to any region in your brain.
Well, most do. I mean, there are some people that really don't have access to their brain, so
like people with mental disabilities.
Yeah, you know,
people actually. I've heard vegans use that as an argument against the big vegan. Well, the people with mental disabilities like Down syndrome, they don't have like higher order cognition or complex reasoning skills or complex emotional feelings or anything like that. So like, should we kill them? Like, well, no, but like you're making an assumption that there's some kind of permanence to these conditions that they have. I mean, with gene therapy, we could alleviate some of these mental disabilities that people have, and so that they'll end up becoming mentally and psychologically, or not psychologically, but mentally normal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and well, going back to the movie, like at 20%, she could do telekinesis, or like she could understand people's thoughts and stuff.
But did she learn how to do capoeira?
She did actually have some good fighting scenes in that movie. I don't know if it involved capoeira.
She might have done capoeira, and I wasn't. But she like.
I'd only be impressed if she can become a Super Saiyan at 50%.
But she did have blonde hair and blue eyes.
I know, like, and that's the thing. Like, I think they were trying to symbolize the ancestral Eve, but you can't really do that with a chick with blonde hair and blue eyes, really. I mean, like, you could do that with, like, that's the only thing I get about the movie is, like, why would you cast a blonde-haired, blue-eyed chick to be symbolic meaning of the ancestral Eve.
They think
like that's so wrong. That's just so wrong.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, is that they're referencing, a 3 million plus year old like pre-ancestor ape species named Lucy, not the ancient scientific Eve that was an actual Homo sapien species like me and you.
Which they referenced in the film.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to what Kevin was saying, you think if she really was as smart as they tried to portray her, she would have known that and explained the urban myth that he's talking about. Like, she can't be too well read, or she would have known that and explained that.
Exactly.
Dun, dun.
That was the same mistake they also made in that movie Powder, which was along similar lines back in the mid 90s. Some kid whose mom got struck by lightning while he was in the womb, and then when he was born, he had like access to a higher percentage of his brain than anyone else, and he could do all the psychic shit, telekinesis, and this, that, and the other. And then like you had Jeff Goldblum's character coming in there speculating, and what if you could use a full 100% of your brain? Then we wouldn't even need bodies; we would just be complete energy and shit. Like, shut the fuck up! You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, in a certain respect, I guess that's kind of true, because if you were using 100% of your brain at one time, that would be an energy overload, because your brain is the one single, if we're talking about single organs and not systems and whatnot, but of all the individual organs in your body, your brain is the one that uses up the most energy. I think I've read that it uses up to 25% of the calories you intake go towards brain function alone. So that's a whole fourth for just one organ.
That must be why vegans are so stupid.
Oh, shots fired. Although, to be fair, plants do have more carbohydrates than animal products do. But anyway, well, milk is an animal product. No, milk has a lot of sugar and carbs in it. But anyway, see, now I forget where I was going. No, yeah, about the brain. So since the brain uses up so much energy, and that's another thing, is for like energy and temperature regulation, all that stuff. Those are all factors that go into why we don't use 100% at any one given time. But if we did use 100% at one given time, that would be like an energy overload, and I suppose you would need to abandon the use of carbon-based flesh and have some kind of like just pure energy mechanism going on in there in order to handle that.
Yeah, and it was like funny, like at 20% Lucy, like she found a way to like one, read thoughts, two, she found out a way to like fight people she didn't know and like reason with them, but like the way she did it was all, advanced, and stuff. Like I remember her, like the friend of Lucy, like she goes to this girl's house to try to figure out who set her up, and then she's like, "You have kidney failure. I want you to go see a doctor and live healthy." And then she leaves without like, doing the test and stuff. And it's like, could you even really do that if your brain was 100%?
Well, the thing about like detecting like organ failure is that I've heard like even animals can detect that because they have heightened senses. Like a cats can smell liver failure, and that if you have a cat that lives in a nursing home, it'll like there's no phenomenon where they'll do that. They'll inhabit the room of the next person who's going to die for a few days, and the cat almost acts as like the Grim Reaper. You can tell who's going to die next by where the cat will wander and dwell in the room for a few days because their nose is so powerful they can smell liver failure.
Damn, I did not know that.
Which may also have some correlation in why certain ancient civilizations, like ancient Egypt, had a role of the cats like being like these ushers of the underworld. Like maybe they saw that same thing. Like wherever the cat goes, the people die. That's why they had this belief of like certain entities of the underworld took on the forms of cats and shit.
Yeah, and cats really played a role in Egyptians' mythology. And it's one of those things, man. I think it's kind of bold that like Facebook is I'm sorry to switch topics, but I think we ran I think we ran that into the ground as far as like transhumanism and.
No, I mean that's fine that you're switching topics. I was just thinking there was going to be a segue there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate to switch topics, but I'm reading this thing online. It's like this change.org thing, and it's like signing a petition to let Native Americans use their Native American names on their Facebook profiles. And like most of their accounts are getting deactivated because they can't use they can't use their Native American names.
Wait, do they mean like an English translation of their native names?
Yeah.
So
I'm thinking like there's gonna have to be like a change in Facebook's laws because so many people are leaving Facebook now because they can't use their.
They got to be referring to like English translations of the native names because Facebook is global now, and so you got to think that names over in like Afghanistan or in China or Mongolia or wherever are just as exotic and have very different spellings than what we use here in our Western Romanized languages. So like, why would they have a problem with you using your native name? And the only thing I could think of is if they're translating it into English and using a name like Crazy Horse, then yeah, that kind of sounds like it's more like an online handle than your actual name.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's discrimination. It's kind of disrespectful in a way because their native names are legal and binding with certified papers. So yet Facebook insists on removing them with no explanation and will not hear any arguments to the latter. So I mean, it's racist in a way. It's like your name doesn't sound English enough, so you get your name off of Facebook, and we're gonna do by any means necessary to get you off of Facebook. It's kind of
anglicize your name or leave.
Right, like.
And the only catch to that is if if you put in your personal information, but then they have you on file and have personal information. So it's so one of those Big Brother kind of things. Like now we've got you.
Are they like worried that okay, well maybe why this person might be using an alias and we don't allow that here because we need to for concerns of privacy or like where if that person ever decides to sexually harass somebody on the internet and they're using an alias that they won't be able to send that information to the authorities because they because it doesn't sound like a real name. So,
and if that's the case, their logic fails them because you can just as easily make up a real sounding name. I could have just as easily put in Jeffrey Smith as my name when I signed up for Facebook.
Jane Doe.
Yeah, Jane Doe.
Jane Doe. I think of like Homer Simpson saying like last name.
Yeah. And, but here's the thing though. I mean, with jobs and considering job security really doesn't exist anymore. I mean, like it's hard to really be online like that, you know what I mean? Because you don't know what employer is looking at it. You don't know who, what, when, where, why. You don't know who's looking at you, and
exactly. That was didn't you get fired from Starbucks over that shit?
Yeah, I did actually. I got terminated over Starbucks. Like at Starbucks because I was I had an argument with in like a group. Like it was a closed group, so only members could view any of the content in the group, and I ended up having like an argument with a couple of baristas there, and they filed a complaint with the company, and I ended up being terminated over that. And so I learned my lesson not to do that ever again. But yeah,
exactly.
I mean, and I did look up if my coworkers' names in the group in case there were any there. There was only one person in there that I knew, but I typed in their name into the actual group to see how often they post, and I thought, okay, well maybe this person won't see this post going to be buried under all this content, but if they ever decide to search for it, then they'll find it, be like, oh, okay, I don't think that they would tell anybody because I'm not intending to post anything malicious or anything like that. But of course, like your intentions aren't always like Yeah, I'm gonna just post positive, information. Like I'm not gonna post anything negative
Exactly.
in the group, and then like someone has a problem with you, and then all of a sudden now you're in an argument, and they find out like, oh yeah,
Stories like that are why I value web anonymity and using sock puppets and shit. Some people get on to me and think that I'm a little too paranoid with that shit of trying to dissociate my real self from my sock puppets and shit. Because and especially since I'm a nobody, I'm not a celebrity or anything. I don't have to worry about stalkers and shit like that. But it's like it's cases like this. You think you're in a little safe zone that you're small enough and have enough anonymity and enough privacy, but
yeah.
they can have real world tangible consequences.
I mean, they can, but I mean, in a way, I mean,
I actually think there should be
considering
legislation.
job security, it kind of sucks nowadays anyway. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's just very true that you should probably watch what you say online anyway. You know, just because like trying to get a job, considering your life depends on it, you know, uh, people are more cautious about what they say, considering your life is dependent on it. You know, and now people are essentially kind of making their statements very vague. You know, like I can remember 2, 3 years ago, Facebook statuses used to be long, you know, and now all of a sudden, considering everybody, well, maybe I've stepped up my inner game, but you know, like now Facebook statuses are more vague and kind of concealing intentions, you know, and I think that's just human nature of concealing intentions and you know
Well,
uh,
I think it is along the lines of what you're talking about. That there is however unconscious it may be, there is a fear there that there could be repercussions like that, even in a worst case scenario, real world repercussions, like the example just highlighted by Kevin in his own personal experience. So you get people like walking the line and using ambiguous language like that, not wanting to have any controversial opinions, or if they do tease a controversial opinion, they'll phrase it so ambiguously to leave themselves some plausible deniability. Like especially like right now with the elections coming up, there's people who I've seen on my Facebook statuses will flip flop back and forth on certain issues, or like with this recent Democratic debate, like who won, Hillary or Bernie Sanders? And there's some people that'll side with the popular opinion that Bernie Sanders won, and then like when Hillary supporters will get on there and like say, how can you say that, blah blah blah, this that and the other, that person will kind of flip flop and like, no, you took me the wrong way. When I said this, what I meant was, and it just kind of always
oh
trying to toe the party line and not being afraid of stepping on anybody's toes lest someone get pissed and report you for something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and also people really don't understand sarcasm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That too, you know, because like I remember one time some guy said something like money you'll be able to buy better memories with money. Sign up today. And I was like, I don't think money buys memories. I think memories, good or bad, is just your opinion on them. I was like, money, if anything, is probably would buy some entropy because, like, once you get what you need from the money, then you're just bored again. And like that was too much of a nuance point for that dude to handle. So like, so like he
yeah.
deleted me off Facebook.
And like when people say money doesn't buy happiness, I think what they mean is that if money is your sole source of happiness, that having more and more money it makes you happy, then you're never really going to be happy because there's never going to be a set amount of money that's going to make you happy. You're just going to want more and more and more and more and more. And so I think that's what people mean by money. But yeah, as I was saying with the Facebook anonymity issues, is that I think that we should pass legislation that prohibits employers from terminating employees over any controversial opinions that they share in groups or on any kind of social media websites whatsoever, unless of
Exactly.
course they directly
doesn't
threaten.
yeah.
Especially if the relationship you have with them is where they are compensating you by the hour. I could kind of understand that if it's one of these things like where celebrities will sign a contract to be a spokesperson for a certain brand, because then your public image reflects how that's gonna reflect on them and affect their sales. So like if you go out there and then get in trouble, like let's throw out for an example there. If you're Bill Cosby and you're getting accused of all this rape and shit, then Jello pudding is gonna drop you as a sponsor and in effect terminate you because that's gonna affect their sales badly, or like Jared with Subway and that shit. But if it's in your case where they were compensating you by the hour, they're compensating you for your time, then for every hour that they do not compensate you, it is every hour that you are not on the clock is not their time. They don't have any say so over it. If they want to have say so over that time, they need to compensate you for it. So if this was in your own personal time, your own recreational time that you spend on Facebook, they either need to compensate you for it, otherwise they don't get a say over how you utilize that time.
Yeah, I actually consider it a violation of my civil liberties. I think I would say
that's where I was going with that too. Isn't that
surveillance of my activities?
Where I was going with that is like, isn't that a violation of your First Amendment right of freedom of speech? I mean, that just kind of proves that freedom of speech is culturally biased. But go on, Neil, or Kevin. I mean.
Oh yeah. I would say it's a more violation of a 14th Amendment, but I think that we should make some amendments to the amendments so that not only includes protection against government, but of course protection against employers who have as much political influence and power as the government does.
Exactly.
And I think that the Constitution needs to evolve with that. I don't think that I don't think if you work at a bank and like you post something about, you post like a controversial opinion about like, oh yeah, I'm endorsing this presidential candidate, or, you espouse views for or against gun control or anything like that. And like, yeah, your employer says like, yeah, we don't like, we want like, pro gun employees here at, X bank or like whatever it's called. And like, we can no longer employ you here. And yeah, that shouldn't be something that an employer can just do.
Precisely.
Unless, of course, they're threatening, like you're a coworker, or you're threatening someone like that.
All too quickly, employers and Americans in general, because they've kind of been brainwashed through their ignorance and shit. We all too quickly forget that no employer is doing their employees any favors. Hence the signs they put up when they want your employment that say "help wanted." They need the help. No business has ever been started because some rich fuck is walking down the sidewalk, sees you starving and homeless, and says, "Oh, you poor thing, let me go start a business so that you can have some form of revenue coming in." No, that's not how businesses get started. They start a business to make money for themselves, and then when that business grows beyond the capacity for them to take care of it on their own, then they need help. Then they hire people to come in and help them do their job. They're not doing you any favors. You are doing them the favor.
Yeah.
So
and, their profit margins are driven entirely by the consumers. You start a business because you're trying to exploit a market that already exists, and without customers buying your products or services, you would not be thriving right now. It's because of the people that your business is prospering. It's not the other way around, and that's why I take issue with Fox News and other right-wing media saying like, oh yeah, they're the job creators, and how dare you to criticize them?
Well, but here's the thing though. If like say Donald Trump, if Donald Trump is making all this money and and capitalists are making all this money, then why does the working class even follow them? Like the working class would literally just be like, you know what? I'm not going to consume from this business. Like, don't work where you won't be hired, And I think the working class is too idealistic. Like, for one, socialism, that's why socialism really don't work in America, is because like the working class are too much at odds with one another to actually like really unite, and I think
we do have a mixed economy. It's not entirely capitalistic, and there's never been a government system where it was like 100% capitalist.
Exactly.
I mean, there's always been social programs and social safety nets that helped people, and that is always because I think that a 100% capitalist system would not be self-sustaining. It would eventually collapse.
And that's the thing. That's the flaw in it. Or like you said, like there's factors in the equation that they don't take into consideration. They try to pitch capitalism to you like it's everybody goes to the same start. Like if you're running in a race, everybody comes up to the starting line. Everybody weighs the same and has the same height and the same shoe size and whatnot, and wearing the same type of shoes and gear or whatever. And then the gun fires and you all take off at the exact same time, and only the fastest person will reach the finish line first. But that's not how it ever is and how it ever has been. It has been that they will come out they will come up to every other competitor that's on the starting line and cut your legs out from under you, cut your arms off of you, move their starting point 100 yards ahead so they get a head start. All these other factors to rig the game in their favor. Exactly.
Yeah,
bring blankets with smallpox on them. It's like.
I actually think that social democracies tend to be the most successful governments out there, like places like Denmark and Sweden and whatnot, that do have a lot more socialism than America does. So I don't think that, we should be like, demonizing social, like, oh, it's evil, and like, it's not like, full-fledged communism, like, Stalinist Russia or anything like that.
But that's one thing I think a lot of anti-capitalists miss is what's right there. I mean, not anti-capitalist, anti-socialists miss is the example of socialism that's right there in front of them, and most obvious and most pervasive, and it's arguably the only unit in human society where socialism actually works the best, and that is the nuclear family. Are we not taught, and do parents not feel naturally inclined to love all of their children equally, regardless of attributes and merit and accomplishments and shit like that? They dispense the resources out to all their children equally as they need them. The mother doesn't favor the strongest, most athletic, or smartest infant and give them more milk than the weakest infant. If anything, it's quite vice versa. The runt of the group might likely be given more milk because he's weaker, needs a better start than the healthy, athletic one. That's arguably the most socialist unit in human society is the nuclear family, the one that all these diehard Republicans and libertarians and pro-capitalists are so hard to push, and that's the scapegoat they want to use to try in their propaganda against their opponents. Is like, oh, you just want to tear apart the family, you want to tear apart the nuclear family, the traditional family, you want to promote gay marriage to tear apart the nuclear family, you want to promote feminism, this, that, and the other to tear apart the nuclear family. And it's like the nuclear family is the most socialist structure our species knows of. So
yeah, and a lot of these people are also in favor of very, very large military budget, and that's a government social program essentially, because it's not like oh yeah, I'm for this social program, but I hate socialism. It's like, what are you talking? Like, that's some like cognitive dissonance there.
Exactly.
Considering America really doesn't know what socialism is, I mean, let's just be real. If you have your employer saying when you can be hired and fired, are you really gonna like look up in the history books what socialism is really? Like to some you might read some Noam Chomsky and some Bill, what is his name? George Carlin, maybe some Bill Maher or something. But you're probably not going to look up the history of Karl Marx and read his Communist Manifesto. And you're probably not going to go to the SWS meetings and the International, the Fourth International, and really immerse yourself into socialist culture.
Canada.
Yeah, unless you're in Canada, and Canada is like the gothic evil cousin of America. Like
gothic cousin with free motherfucking healthcare.
and oftentimes the critics of socialism, they like to point out that look how many people this socialist dictator, really communist dictator killed and all that, as if capitalism never killed anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
throwing stones in glass houses, I tell you.
It's where are you kidding me? Like why then? Okay, you do realize that we've had to go to all these other countries and exploit their natural resources and take it from them just to generate all of this wealth, and we've had to enslave an entire group of people for hundreds of years
and eradicate the indigenous people that were here.
Yeah, which were inarguably numbered in tens of millions. So if you actually think about it,
What was
actually killed
what was that
monkeys.
national capitalist holiday we just celebrated this past week?
Columbus Day.
The purge. I mean, Columbus Day,
Jesus.
the annual purge. Yeah, man.
I'm all about, like, I want to abolish that holiday and like Thanksgiving too. Like, we should just have like Native American like remembrances days at. Like, we shouldn't even bother celebrating like stupid holidays like Columbus Day or Thanksgiving. And turkey sucks too. I just want to say that it's like a really
I don't have a
bland.
problem. Don't diss the turkey. The turkey ain't did nothing wrong. It's just the holiday. Can we still have turkey though? Like,
I don't know. I think
it can be called Indigenous Day, but yeah, like it can be called Indigenous Day.
James is reminding me of one of the best. Just to get us a little off topic here, James is reminding me of one of the best Subway crazy man rants I ever heard when I lived in New York, and there were a lot of them. Subway station was a great place to listen to crazy people rants, but this was on Thanksgiving. One of my coworkers that invited me over because I don't have any family up in New York, so I was there essentially all alone. But one of my coworkers invited me over to his house to have Thanksgiving dinner over at his house, and then it was late night when we got out, and I was riding the train back home. I'm sitting there on the train station. There was this kind of old black guy, kind of remind me of what's his name, the father on Sanford and Son.
Fred.
I know what he looks
Fred
like.
Sanford was his name, but
Red Fox.
Yes, thank you, Red Fox. Okay, yeah, he kind of had that thing going on. Not quite as fat, but he was kind of older gentleman. Even kind of had that southern, even though he lived in New York, kind of had that southern swag to the way he was talking. In this long trench coat, and he was just paid. There was nobody else at the platform because it was so late at night and it was a holiday, so everybody else was out doing shit. There was nobody else on the platform except for me and this old fella, and he was like walking back and forth like he was talking to somebody. He's like, "Oh, it's Happy Turkey Day tonight." He's like, "Oh, we're gonna have some soul food tonight." He's like, "Oh yeah, them green beans, or boiled in ham and bacon and all of the dressing and then turkey, all that moist turkey," and just going on about like the soul food shit. "Oh, I love me some fried soul food. Mama's good cooking," and like just going on about like soul food and Thanksgiving food. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
okay,
I mean,
then.
It's like, yeah, Thanksgiving, even though we don't celebrate it for its indigenous killing, we do like the turkey though. So like the turkey is not harming anybody. It's just the people that harm people we don't agree with.
And Ben Franklin wanted to nominate that as the national bird instead of the bald eagle.
Yes. Okay, well maybe. Why is it so good then?
When I was a kid, I used to wonder why the eagle literally wasn't bald. Because it's like, bald eagle, but it's not bald, because it's not like the feathers there are missing on top of its head.
There are some birds that have feathers missing on top of their heads. I have a cockatiel, and the albino cockatiels that I have, they all have a patch of feather that's missing on their head. But that's because they got that coif thing like cockatoos have. It's like the cockatiel is like the midget cousin of the cockatoo.
Yeah, I used to have a couple of them, and I actually lost my cockatiel. It actually flew away. Yeah, it flew. I don't know. It just like flew out the window. Like I had the window open and just like I was like, no. This happened a long time ago though, so I'm not like really sad about it.
I know I've had my cockatiel for like a good 10 to 13 years. So like,
yeah, they lived for quite a while.
Yeah, dude, they live to about 30 years. So like, if you take good care of them, so like, he's like my alarm clock in the morning.
Dun, 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 dun.
But yeah, I mean, dang, what were we talking about?
Turkeys, because Thanksgiving, turkey sucked.
Oh
Thanksgiving
yeah, turkey. I don't know. Like, I think
I like
Indigenous Day would be a great thing. I'd sign a petition or whatever.
I agree. That's why we already have Indigenous Day here in Canada. Booyah.
That's good.
Yeah, but America's
like
again.
Retarded.
America's America, bruh. Like,
I mean, well, we did take down the Confederate flag, so that's a good step in the right direction.
They went a little too far with that though by getting the Dukes of Hazzard pulled off.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Like that's a little too much. But like I can understand why they took down the Confederate flag. or
Yeah,
at
but
least like
it's
it's not.
really,
It's not.
but they don't do this. Here's the thing that America doesn't do. They will never like talk about like reparations or anything. Like
Yeah.
we'll have symbolic victories, the first black president, you know, symbols being changed. But the symbol that's never changing is that supremacy, that white supremacy that's never changing. It's like
Yeah, and even when we did elect Barack Obama, there were still people out there like, oh, he was born in Kenya and he's like a Muslim queer and whatnot. And like when Ted Cruz when Ted Cruz, I think, and he announced his presidency, like nobody was like demanding that he show his birth certificate, even though he was born in Canada. And even if Barack Obama was born in Kenya, his mother is still American, so he'd still be granted citizenship on that basis. It's not like if one of your parents is an American citizen, then then you're considered an American. Like, so even if he was born in Kenya, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I've met a few Christian missionaries back in my church-going days in which that was the case. They went on like mission trips to South Africa, and the children they had while they were there were automatically American citizens.
Americans, and they feel like they're saving them from their environment, but in a way that's kind of genocide in a way, because they really do kill off their indigenous culture for a more Christian, more acceptable one. And it's like, in a way, I mean, that's like faking like you're gonna help somebody, but really you're just giving them cancer. It's just like,
it's ironic because they often complain about like immigration here, where they're gonna destroy a culture that we're trying to take the germs.
They're gonna take our jobs, and then
as if like American culture is like a homogeneous culture, like every other country on the planet. Like, we need to preserve something. What are we preserving? Like, oh well, what is American culture? Well,
Yeah, no, if I could jump in on this for a sec here, I always ask people from the United States, from the South, what exactly they're trying to preserve with this rebel Confederate flag, whatever they want to call it stuff. What is it that they're trying to preserve? Like, bad teeth and cousin marriage? I mean, like, what is
Their
it that's so
heritage.
sacred? Like, what
It's
the hell are
just
you trying
like
to preserve? I don't
their
get it.
white heritage.
You don't see Germans still flying the Nazi
Yeah.
flag as a
was
symbol
about
of their
to mention
heritage. I mean, shit.
I mean, you do,
And this coming from
but
Georgia, which in my lifetime, back in the '80s, when I was a child, that the Confederate flag symbol was actually still a part of the Georgia state flag. That wasn't the whole flag, but it was like one of the bottom corner sections of it. So that actually was our state flag, and I grew up not knowing if there was anything wrong with that flag. So this coming from a native Georgian saying that, yeah, I mean, give it up, shit. But leave the Dukes of Hazzard alone. Just blur it out or something, shit. Because I also grew up on the Dukes of Hazzard.
I mean, as long as it's not on like government buildings, then it's fine. If it's in like even if it's on like a business, I wouldn't care. But if you're actually like flying that flag over like a government building, then I would have a problem with that. Like if like you were at like a public school and there was like the American flag, and then there was like right next to it was like the Confederate flag, then
No.
No.
And I'll concur with you on that point, but you just remind me of something that I do have to get off my chest. I do have this one criticism about the people who were anti-rebel flag was when they used the argument that that was a symbol of treason. Like this flag is a symbol of treason of people who betrayed our country and turned away from the United States of America, and they seceded, and so that flag is a flag of treason. And I'm like, well, the American flag is a flag of treason because we broke away from Great Britain. So that's a slippery slope argument that can turn around and
But yeah, like I think that's the strongest argument against having the Confederate flag is like, yeah, it's essentially a symbol of slavery.
yeah, but so is like poverty too. I mean, poverty is a symbol of slavery, yet nobody does anything about it. So
And now-
forget the symbol. I'm done with the symbol. Like, let's talk about the meaning of never changing. You know what I mean? Because it's like the symbol may be gone.
It's the same economic status essentially, where you're being exploited for labor, and then living in
that's
dog
my
shit poverty.
point.
Yeah, exactly. Like from someone who's regional, you're living on the same property lot as your master, to your master now living in Washington D.C. I mean, that's all you've done is switch where your master lives. He doesn't live on the plantation with you; he lives in Washington D.C.
Yeah, so I mean, really, like say Nazi Germany took off their Nazi signs and just put a regular flag up, is Nazism gone? No,
but I think that like it symbolizes more than just slavery, though, because like along with it, when we took down that, it was symbolic when we took it down. But I think that associated with that flag is like the culture and like Jim Crow laws and segregation and all of that. And so by taking it down, it was
the
like
bigger
saying,
deal of racism, not just slavery specifically, but the broader scope
of
institutional
racism.
Yeah,
I get that, like a symbolic victory. But when are we gonna have some real material victories though? Like I'm sick of symbolic victories. I'm sick of like, symbols, removing symbols and, putting, like even Barack Obama, he's supposed to symbolize if he can make it, you can make it too.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then we get to meritocracy,
and that doesn't change anything, because that was still the case back during the slavery times. There were still free black men, rich free black men, and even black slave owners when slavery was still an institute, a legal institute of the United States.
And that's
picking out, in other words, we don't define the rule by the exception. Just cherry picking out a few prime examples to stack the deck for your confirmation bias. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and like Madam C.J. Walker, like in the 1919, like she was like the first black millionaire, but yet I'm pretty sure people from the South was probably like, well, if she made it, you can make it too. And it's like,
that's probably, I have a problem with that.
And that happened at 1919. 2015, that has not changed. That whole ideology is still the same, whether we have an American flag or a Confederate American flag or not. So I mean, either way, it's like,
yeah. And I think that we have that problem today, where people think that, well, I was once, a working class person, and I worked hard and I worked myself up the social ladder, and now I'm an upper middle class man. I got like I have like 5 cars, and I have all of these amenities in my house, and I have, my net worth is like $2 billion, and like, if I could make it, then you can too. And like, you can't even possibly measure each and every initial condition that goes into that chain of causations that leads to your wealth. There's no way to measure that. And you might think, yeah, I had no help whatsoever, but really, a lot of it, is luck. Like, because for every success story, there are probably thousands of people that don't have success stories. Like, you can be like, one person has a success story. Well, there are 10 people that tried the same thing you did that didn't have any success.
You don't trade guarantees for maybes.
And that's the problem I have. It's like everybody's situation is different, so you cannot possibly take your experience and then impose that on everybody else. Yeah, I can make it. You can make it.
And that's also how they maintain power in a way. By back in the day, back in the times of like the Dark Ages and stuff like that, like peasants were just considered unfortunate. Like, say you would have a king or whatever, and the king, he was just like, man, those poor people over there, those poor peasants, those are just unfortunates. Now, the more the world is secular, the more that the world is secular, there's this inherent belief in meritocracy, the belief that if I can do it, you can do it too. And that's also how people maintain their power and also conceal their intentions, because by them saying that gives you that they're pretty much dangling the carrot to play in the game.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick commercial break on Real Raw Talk, only on SFTB Podcast.
Real raw talk.
All right, and we are back, and this is not JP, this is Malik, and Kev, during the commercial break, you were just talking about the Drunken Peasants podcast, and you were talking about a certain show you're listening into there?
Oh, yeah, they had one with, like, Brett Keenan, Nephilim 3, and I think someone else, but I can't remember. I think, G-Man. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, G-Man. G-Man, you are the biggest house Negro ever. Oh, my God, I swear. People that they get on that show just quack some of them.
Nephilim 3 is like my every time he speaks, like my brain cells die. He's like a geocentric.
He's a geocentric flat earther, just the whole 9 yards.
There was one video that Truth Surge did that he parodied him. I think it's called "Behind Crude Lies." It's a parody of Limp Bizkit's "Behind Blue Eyes." I think it's based on an even older song than that.
I have seen that where he's got the big oversized earmuffs.
Whoa, hold the phone. In 2015, there's people that still believe in the flat earth shit? Like, what?
Yeah,
for real?
dude, even though they're a very small minority, like you can count on one hand, there are actually PhD, like legit credentialed, what do you call them, geologists who support geocentrism.
That is so fucked up. I mean, with all the sciences, I mean, like, we have cameras, we have freaking videos in space, we can see the globe. What the fuck is wrong with people?
I know. Why are you?
If you fling enough shit at a wall, some of it's bound to stick. That's all I can say to that. I mean, I've always been a little interested in conspiracy theories myself, but that one would take the conspiracy that it would take to cover that kind of shit up would be so widespread. I'm not even sure even someone like me could buy into.
Yeah, like it's been debunked for thousands of years. Do they not know this?
The ancient Greeks debunked it before Christ even walked the earth.
Right. Like, talk about being stupid. I mean, not to mention folks like Neil deGrasse Tyson would be on every news station and science program confirming the Earth is flat. People are retards.
I think like Neil deGrasse Tyson is like the Carl Sagan of our time.
Totally agree.
I wonder who'll come after him though.
Did you guys see the comedy skit where Key and Peele do Neil deGrasse Tyson and his wife comes home like yelling like, "Hey, you're supposed to take out the trash." She's like, "Well, honey, in multiple dimensions, I already did take out the trash."
I don't think I saw, but I do.
Yeah.
Some of their content.
Yeah, I saw that. When Neil deGrasse Tyson was like talking to his girlfriend, and like he would always like find a way through science to get out of his afflictions.
Yeah. Like, that shit was too funny. Yeah, it's like, "Well, honey, in the multiverse, the garbage is already out, and I've already done this and that." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
Speaking of multiverses, have you heard this Berenstein Bear conspiracy theory shit yet?
Nope.
Okay, here's how the theory goes. First, let me ask you. Spell it. Spell Berenstein.
Just off the top of my head, from what I recall, it would be like BERENSTEIN, I guess.
That's how 99.9% of us would say that's how it was spelled. That's how most of us remember reading it when we were kids growing up, reading those books. There are people you can find on the internet, like on Amazon and eBay and shit, who have copies of the books that spell it that way on the book title page. Yet, the authors of the Berenstein Bear books, the publishers of those books, claim that it has always been, from the very beginning, Berenstein, STAIN, at the end of it. And they show books where it's like that, copies of the books from the 80s and 70s and shit that have it spelled that way, and they claim it has always been spelled that way, and anyone who says otherwise is just cuckoo, even though there's evidence that it was spelled otherwise. And so, even though this is really reaching out there, but there are some people who say maybe that's evidence of multiverse theory, where our two parallel universes have crossed over somewhere. And maybe,
I don't know if this actually happened. Like, this shit would be on the news and all that, though. You know?
Yeah, maybe no major news websites have covered this story. Huh. That's the thing. It's not just some like nutter lone theory circling around out there. They say like, yeah, I mean, then they've talked to like a couple of quantum physicists who propose that kind of like quantum entanglement kind of theory, or maybe those of us who remember it as Berenstein, like EIN, are from one universe, and there's a very close universe, almost exactly like ours, who remember Berenstein, and somewhere there was some kind of quantum entanglement, and they just kind of crossed together, and like.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, like, we live in a very, like, spooky universe, right? Like, we're still figuring out a lot of stuff, and there could be multiple dimensions right in front of our face, and we wouldn't be able to see them. So, I mean, who knows what's going on? I'm going to have to look into this a bit more though, because I grew up reading those books and watching that show, so I'm gonna have to check that out. But yeah, multiverse theory is not that crazy anymore. It's a big possibility actually.
What if it's like when you die, like you see the white light, but instead of actually just your body just deteriorating and you lose consciousness and all that, instead you end up in like a parallel universe every time you die.
Kind of like in Jet Li's The One that we had discussed earlier.
Oh, I is that what it's based on?
Yeah, he's like traveling through different dimensions, killing other versions of himself so that all the power accrues to him.
Yeah,
that would suck, wouldn't it? Because you'd eventually grow a tolerance to that, and then like going to parallel universes wouldn't harm you. Like, wouldn't you eventually build entropy towards it?
Not sure if I follow.
Like, say if I passed away or something, and my consciousness keeps going in this like parallel universe, considering it's my consciousness, wouldn't it just like develop? Like, wouldn't it get bored?
Well, the premise of the movie that we're actually talking about, like, I mean, he's just, right, like, Jet Li is going from dimension to dimension into the different universes where he exists, and he's killing himself off in those dimensions to make himself stronger, because he gets all the power or, like, life force from himself in those dimensions, so, you know...
So it's more akin to Highlander in that respect than
Fight Club. Yeah. Like Fight Club.
If you're transported when you're transporting from one universe to another, then I mean, is that really you? This goes into like the issue of personal identity. Is that still you?
Exactly. Or same thing with like the transhumanist position where they want to download your consciousness into like robots and computers and shit. Is that still really you though, or just like with computer files, is it just a copy of you instead of you? You know?
Yeah. So it's not exactly you. So.
At the same time, though, kind of, and I never actually thought of this before until just now.
As far as I'm concerned, if the copy of you has all the same information as you, it is you, unless you want to invoke some type of, like theology or soul or something into it.
If it's really a copy, then it isn't you, because it's a copy of you. Something that it's in the law of identity, something that is you has to share all properties of you, including your occupation in space and time. So even if there was a me that was exactly like me in every way, but it was sitting right here next to me, it still wouldn't be me because we're not occupying the exact same point in space. So there's at least one trait that we're.
Well, what if you fuse? What if you like fuse the bodies like in Dragon Ball Z?
I'm not even in final form yet.
Rolling back to what I just said, though, in a sense, though, that is kind of the way our bodies are operating, though, and what we're doing, because we don't have. Or organically speaking, we don't have the same body we had 7 years ago, because every 7 to 10 years, your body replaces every cell in its body. And so the only thing that preserves you is the transference of your memory, your consciousness through your cells until the end of your lifetime. So in that sense, it's almost kind of like you are a computer that you're replacing the parts in, and it's just kind of downloading the hard drive each time you replace those cells. So I imagine in theory that actually probably is kind of possible.
Yeah, personal identity is definitely something that's transitive. The only thing that maintains any semblance of what you once were is the psychological continuity of your memories. Like, you are the same person you were 7 years ago because you remember being that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what really gets a mindfuck, is when you realize memory is not reliable either. So.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched that cartoon Rick and Morty on Adult Swim?
I've seen it, yeah.
I love that cartoon because they kind of throw around ideas like this. In fact, there actually is one episode where they've done that, where it like Rick, one of his experiments fucked up the universe they were living in, so he just used a interdimensional portal to go to another universe that was essentially identical to the one he just fucked up. And Morty was having a real time coping with that. He's like, "But it's not a real family." And he's like, "Shut up, Morty. It's close enough. Fuck you. Like, just accept it and deal with it."
Yeah.
All right, so this has been Real Raw Talk, brought to you by the boys at SFTB Incorporated. Wishing you a happy Columbus Day, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.
Real raw talk.